And we're back here live in theCUBE at Hadoop Summit in San Jose. I keep wanting to say Santa Clara, San Jose.
Last year's, yeah.
Yes, I'm here with my co-host, Abhi Mehta.
Thank you, just got my promotion to a co-host.
Doing a bang up job.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And we're joined now by Dragomir from Adobe.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, really appreciate it.
Thank
you. One of the big things we're trying to do here on theCUBE is bring in some practitioners, some big data practitioners, to really talk about kind of working in the trenches and how they're really making use and deriving value from big data. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then maybe we can go into how Adobe is kind of working in the big data space.
Sure, definitely. So I'm a, as you say, a practitioner, a software engineer. We've been working with, me and my team, we've been working with these technologies, Hadoop, HBase, and friends, since 2008 actually, so we're really early practitioners with this stuff. We've been running it in production since late 2009, so again, we're pretty advanced for that time. And what can I tell you? We've had a lot of experience, me personally, working with other distributed systems, building some internal stuff at Adobe, and then we looked at these open source projects, and it made a lot of sense to start looking at them and using them. And basically, we placed a big bet on Hadoop and HBase, and it's starting to really pay off.
What drove it for a technology company to have picked this thing? I'm sure you have incredibly smart developers, your products are incredible. What drove this move to going open source and being such an early adopter? What was the driving factor?
Well, I guess it was more like the necessity is the mother of all. Basically, Adobe was traditionally they had a lot of experience and some hugely smart people working with image technologies, video technologies. But nobody, us included, we didn't have much idea about analytics, big data, distributed systems. So in that sense, it made a lot of sense because in the beginning, what we were on about was fast prototyping. So we did a whole bunch of prototypes for a whole bunch of clients and products. For video analytics, we did machine learning. We did a project that was really interesting of analyzing Flash content on the internet, so we can detect stuff like Flash player crashes and what functions are people using. Proactively.
Okay.
Yeah. So we knew there was a use case. It's like we were growing into this technology while the company was growing into this need.
Very interesting.
So it was kind of a serendipity. And now Adobe is moving more and more towards services. What with the launch of CS6 and the subscription model and the Creative Cloud.
Right.
And we're going to be seeing much more and more user-generated content, user-generated data, like somebody mentioned in a presentation, observational data.
Right.
So we need to have the tools on hand to be able to derive meaning and business value from this data.
Very interesting, because we spoke recently with Peter Goldmacher, who's a Wall Street analyst at Cowen, and he mentioned his thesis was that you're going to see the majority of value generated around big data from practitioners, and he specifically pointed to Adobe, so I was particularly excited to talk to you today. So why don't we dive into a little bit about, as you kind of go into that services business a little bit more, the role of big data, and how you're turning that to your advantage to actually create value for your customers and actually value for Adobe.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing that we're looking at is matching. Basically, there's a couple of things here. The first of is what do we need to do in our software offerings to make it more useful for users. One of the best way of doing it is actually observing what users are doing with the product, right? That's one thing. On the other hand, it's something totally unrelated, like we are creating new software products, which that's their reason to analyze data and create value for customers. And again, I'm referring here to the digital marketing initiatives and what we're doing with big data in those spaces. And finally, there's a lot of stuff that's related to internal metrics, and the question is. Quality of service data, how well does a product work for my users? And that's a huge amount of data that traditionally and in most companies today still stays in its raw form because the tools don't exist to query it, basically process it, query it, and get meaning from it.
So slightly change the topic, I mean, making it more around, is this as much as where you said necessity is the mother of invention?
Yeah.
Is it as much the fact that you're moving to a as a services model, which seems interesting and logical? We hear that a lot, Jeff, right? From
Absolutely.
a lot of people coming here. Seems like this collision between the cloud and big data is almost forcing, both for the customers and on B2B side, but also for companies and as a service model. What about something a little bit more separate on the technical side? This whole HTML5 versus Adobe's core technologies and some of your larger customers or larger users saying, well, HTML5 is going to be the way. I mean, how do you guys view this shift in technology? We're talking about the analytics side, but what about shift in technology on, as new technological waves come? Because HTML5, I can make the same logical argument around Hadoop, open sourcing a key part of the stack. Proprietary technologies have to look in and ask them a tough question. It's very reassuring to see you guys picking up Hadoop on the analytics side. What about on the core business? How does HTML5 change your perspectives on proprietary technologies?
Well, again, that's not my area of competence, but if you're looking at what we're doing right now in the space, we're becoming in a very short time, and that's related strictly to the HTML5 questions.
Right.
We're actually becoming really big players in the WebKit ecosystem.
Ah, okay.
So we actually have a team in Romania. We have WebKit committers. We've implemented and the way it integrates with our products is basically we have a lot of knowledge with stuff related to video, audio, image, typography.
Right.
One of the things that we did, and again, this is unrelated to big data, just this, we implement the stuff that does CSS regions, basically allowing you with HTML5 and open web technology to have really, really advanced layouting techniques for web pages.
Right.
So we're embracing that with, and the reason is why, and again, this is, I guess it's pretty much common sense. Everybody benefits, right?
No,
we benefit because we're
and it's almost like you're making the distinction between the IP, the intellectual property, is not the core technology, the software. It's decoupling it. It's a very interesting point on the fact that it's your knowledge, it's your semantic knowledge of processing images and videos and documents that is probably more important than the technology that you've written to it.
Exactly.
And if you can apply that to HTML5 or any new technologies, open source or not, you can retain your advantage. Is that the concept?
I think so.
Interesting.
I think so, yeah.
So, back to this conference here. I mean, what are you seeing here in terms of the vibe and in terms of the attendees here? Is it heavily on the technology and the developer side? And kind of, you're an early adopter. You've been using this for a while. Are you seeing a lot of your brethren early adopters? Are you seeing some new faces? And what's your take?
I'm seeing a lot of new faces, and I think it's like the free lunch is over, so to speak. And this is good.
There's nothing like a free lunch, huh?
Yeah, right. Up to a point, Hadoop was this technology where you had to invest a lot in creating your own team that could install it, operate it, and develop on it.
Correct.
A lot of these functions now are being replaced by either vendor solutions or they're being rolled up into the core product itself. And for me, this is something that's really, really awesome to see because typically, that's the way that you want to bring an open source project forward, right? Take care of the underlying infrastructure so you can concentrate on creating business value with it.
So how do you see the larger players who have now come and embraced the HDFS ecosystem in the last 12 months? IBM, EMC, HP, VMware, versus Hortonworks and Cloudera. I mean, what is your perspective? Have you used a lot of them? What do you think of what each of them offers?
So we did look at some commercial technologies that's building around this ecosystem. We've evaluated some of them. Well, I think it depends. I can't speak for the motivations of each party, but what I want to say is that competition is a really, really fine way of driving stuff forward, right?
I agree.
So let 1,000 flowers bloom and let users have choices. And let enterprises invest more in Hadoop and the existing ecosystem. So related to the vendors, that's pretty much my idea. What was really interesting coming, and this was the first time at this year's Hadoop Summit, was seeing a lot of open source projects in the Hadoop ecosystem but which are not tightly related to the core. So we've seen presentations on, well, HBase is now, you know, pretty part of the core, but we've seen presentations on Zookeeper, on Storm, and all kind of technologies that really complement Hadoop.
Completely agree.
And moving forward, I think that's
exciting.
That's not just empty talk. That's the Hadoop ecosystem.
And it's a big one.
It's a big one.
I mean, we at Jeff's does, I do. I call it the HDFS ecosystem. It's actually not about Hadoop anymore. Right? It's not just MapReduce and HDFS.
Yeah.
And the HDFS ecosystem is very vibrant. We see it with all these conversations, all the projects. Storm is, there was a standing room only crowd for Nathan Braz for Storm today morning, which is very good to see. There's interest on real time and Hadoop. We get the question often. And I agree with you. This is a very vibrant ecosystem. It almost compels you to when Jeff, what do you say, right? That open source is the secret sauce.
Exactly.
And but it's open, right? The secret is open. The emperor has clothes or not, we know it. We know exactly what it is.
Yeah, absolutely, but you know, we're also seeing, if you look at some of the vendors here, I mean, we're seeing there's some of the more traditional data management vendors that are now trying to kind of position themselves in the big data world.
That's a good point.
You know, so versus some of the, you know, Hadoop focused upstarts in the open source world. And it's really interesting to see how they're playing together.
Right.
And you know,
are they playing together, Jeff?
Some are. You're seeing some proprietary vendors working with some of the distribution vendors, for instance. That's
good point.
That's we're seeing some of that. You know, but I think we coined the term big data washing on this on the CUBE a while back. You know, not everyone who kind of slaps that term onto their product onto the box is really big data. So you know, it's definitely still an evolving ecosystem right now.
Definitely. I think also from what I'm seeing, most vendors are also testing the waters,
right? And
you know, implementing some stuff. There's again, there are a lot of vendors which are selling stuff that helps Hadoop be easier to use. I think that's still like a motif that comes up in a lot of what the vendors are doing.
No, right, absolutely. I mean, one of the keys of being an enterprise-ready platform is it has to be able, you know, easy to use. So to abstract away some of the complexity with some of these drag-and-drop tools and GUI, you know, graphical user interfaces and things like that, so you don't have to write the raw code.
Exactly.
And I think that's one way that we're seeing the more traditional proprietary type vendors.
That's right.
That's what they're trying to do is apply their data integration methods, you know, to Hadoop, and we'll bring our kind of our user interface to that.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's important. I mean, that's one way. You know, we're going to reach that level of adoption is to make the tools easy to use.
What's exciting for me, Jeff, is to see companies like Adobe. You know, I've been a practitioner. I'm now a developer, a vendor, trying to change the world with. My little initiative, but it's very exciting to see companies like Adobe, right? Who I would not classify. It's almost like what you described to us is the evolution of your company, fundamentally built around big data. People may not think of it that way, but you are a big data company yourself.
Well, I wouldn't know if I could go so far, but it seems to be an emergent pattern in what we're doing right now.
But you can use, the one I was trying to make was, you actually are leveraging the same tools that a Google has leveraged for search and Facebook for social, and banks can leverage on my platform for financial data to actually look at building an as-a-service model for Adobe, which is very, very exciting to see because, Jeff, in my mind, that opens up a whole new world of existing technology companies can redo their own infrastructures and their own business models around analytics and predictive work, as you mentioned. Well, it's very exciting.
It's very exciting, but you know, it is also scary, I think, to some businesses. To change my whole business model, you know, it's like, that we spent years and years building. So, you know, but it's going to be those companies that jump in early and really are committed to it, as Adobe is, that you're going to see flourishing.
Completely agree.
Again, back to our friend Peter Goldmacher at Cowen, he said back in the late 80s, early 90s, if you're trying to pick which vendor was going to be the ERP vendor, you never would have bet on SAP. But if you had bet on, the companies that were using ERP, those companies, you know, their value exploded. So the practitioners, that's really where a lot of the value is.
Completely agree.
You know, it's hard. You know, we are here on theCUBE, we love to try to pick, you know, who's going to win the Hadoop distribution game of the war, or whatever you want to call it. And that's important. But really, it's the practitioners that are developing either new lines of business or completely new business models or startups building off this platform where the value is.
And another thing is that we try to, you know, we try to look at everything what's happening, but again, we're trying to be pragmatic. we're building some of this stuff on our own right now.
Right.
If there's a solution as a service from somebody else, and if it makes sense, from all standpoints, technology, performance, price, then why not? We're open to any kind of suggestions.
Right.
The most important thing, again, is being a practitioner and actually getting inside the mind of the big data ecosystem.
Completely agree.
Yeah, in terms of, so what advice would you have to IT pros out there? They know a bit about maybe they're DBAs, or they've got experience in data management, but not in big data, and they're wondering how they're going to transition in their careers to really take advantage of this. What advice would you have for them to kind of get moving down that road?
I think just go ahead and do it. I've always been a fan of just doing it, basically, and then there's
Nike is the big data company. Just do it.
Yeah.
they did it.
I hope they won't sue me for this.
I think that was a good reference.
But I mean, the point is that as opposed to 2008, 2009, the tools are much more finished.
Great.
Everything is much more easier.
Completely great.
You've got Amazon. You've got Hadoop infrastructure in Amazon.
Yes.
You can get started.
Hadoop is enterprise ready. It's about time to
Exactly. You can get started in more than one way, and you can just start doing it right now. Just learn the concepts, learn how to think like a big data practitioner or scientist,
and the community is pretty good. The community embraces you. The 2,000 people here are testament to the fact that if you are willing, to your point, Jeff, if you have an idea and you want to implement it, and you want to reach out and figure out, if you have a question, because I agree with you completely, it is a much stronger and readier ecosystem. If you have a question, reach out to the community. There are enough people now with expertise and experience and open to share it.
Yeah, and we're bringing them on theCUBE, and they're
bringing
sharing
them on
it.
theCUBE.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, I've been covering as a reporter before joining Wikibon as an analyst, covering more traditional business intelligence and data warehousing, and as we've all started to learn about big data, what I've really been struck by is exactly what you're talking about, the community, just the ability, the willingness to share data. I mean, Abhi, you've been coming on theCUBE a lot, you've helped me kind of understand the market, so yeah, I agree, it's a great community of people. There's a little bit of that co-opetition on the vendor landscape, but that's good,
Competition
is good.
It's a perfectly healthy phenomenon.
Exactly, frenemies is a very good thing to have.
Absolutely. All right, well thanks so much, we really appreciate you coming on theCUBE.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back in just a few minutes with our next guest.